One of the best ways that I can try and bring this home, an example that I use all the time in my household is my wife and I made two $200 investments in lighting in our home a couple years back. That's, if you think of our house as a corporation, we're not trying to tell our neighbors what to do. As a corporation, as our household, we made the decision to make those investments ourselves. Those investments have an 8-month payback. In 8 months, we're starting to save money as a household. If I can demonstrate those savings to my neighbor, and this is where I want to take Guelph Corporation as an example. If I can demonstrate those savings to the skeptics, to the believers, to everybody, there's broader based support moving forward. There will, because we can show that we're lowering emissions as a corporation, but we're also saving money. That sort of common currency approach where I'm trying to bring the polarization of the argument around skepticism to environmental initiatives, we're trying to remove those and trying to get to those common currency or eco-fiscal approach to what I'm hoping to do. Another great example is our water strategy. In Guelph, as a corporation, we developed a water strategy, and we have demonstrated to the people of Guelph that it has been good for the environment, good for our society, good for our social well-being, but also really good for our pocketbooks. And that's a similar approach that I'm hoping, and I'm going to be we, I guess, collectively challenging our climate change and sustainability office with this recommendation. On the energy mix. So we know that in Ontario, our energy generation is largely non-emitting, so 90% plus. But what the studies are telling us now is the next big wave in emissions reductions is through our buildings. So 19% of our provincial emissions are coming from buildings. 35% of our provincial emissions are still coming from our transportation fleet. So if we align our corporation with largely what the province is starting to talk more and more about, to attack 55% of the emissions in our province, I think that's a great start where we can demonstrate, in our role as part of the task force, but we can demonstrate as a corporation that we are reducing emissions, we're saving money, and we're rolling those savings into other things that we're spending money on. Social programs, maybe some. I personally like the term infrastructure, but those are areas that we can be focusing on. On reducing costs, I've cited this many times in the last few months. Our expected corporate utility bill next year will be $10 million, or this year it's approaching $10 million. Our fuel budget for our transit and corporate fleet, thanks to staff for helping me put this together, is approaching $4 million. But we know that the speed at which this economy is moving, as a corporation, we don't need to wait for recommendations. As a corporation, we can see energy savings through emissions reductions and through electrifying our fleet. We can see those very quickly. And with $14 million going to disposable utility and fuel costs, the fiscal side of me wants to tackle those budgets now. I want to start getting on those. As a corporation, I think it makes sense. We can develop the business case, but we can also show our residents that we're tackling emissions as well. And this transition, I know there's been some great videos circulated, but it's not just happening in this room. It's a global transition. We know that. India has announced that by 2030 they won't be selling combustion engines anymore as a country. I'm not asking to go as a country. I'm asking to go just as a corporation, that we would start adopting these technologies. The India example removes 37% of their country's emissions and reduces their national energy bill by $60 billion. So that's reduced reliance on foreign oil, keeps that money inside their own corporation, inside their own country. The City of Vancouver has recently endorsed a net zero emissions building plan by 2030. They're looking to retrofit their corporate assets as a city to net zero emissions by 2030. That was a bold decision recently. And closer to home, we're starting to hear more and more noise from City of Windsor and some others about simply going out and buying electric city buses, which is exciting. I know there's other cities, corporations that are talking about this, not on a community level, but as a corporation, just simply looking for short wins on energy savings. So yes, absolutely. To date, the moral imperative to do something about climate has always been there. That's been the argument. But I think more and more we're starting to see the fiscal returns and the fiscal argument to moving in this direction are making complete business sense. And I'm excited to hopefully give this new direction to our corporate energy plan.